And we are back. Appreciate y'all for tapping in with us on the Doing All Right podcast here. Bryan Broaddus over there on his side of the mothership. I'm in the Iron Throne trying to figure out this Packers defense for y'all. We're gonna break it down and tell you some of the ins and outs of it. Bryan Broaddus, pretty good defense.
Pretty good defense. Yeah,
I think they're good at what they do. Mm-hmm. I think their offense is going to try to put them in situations to make them play the kind of ball that they want to play.
Right.
And that kind of reminds me of that old Dan Quinn defense we used to have, Bryan.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Guys flying around.
Oh, yeah.
Pass rush will really get to you if you let them. If they force you to throw the ball at the end of the game, they're really going to try to get you there.
Right.
I think if you're powerful on your offensive line, you can move these guys around a little bit. We'll talk about that a little bit more. I think they got some good linebackers, Bryan.
Yeah.
They're aggressive, but I think they're good. They got some corners I've never heard of in my life.
Yeah.
But they play a really good cover, too, to not let you get too much deep stuff.
Yeah.
But I think you can find them on the intermediate, Bryan Broaddus. We're going to talk about all this, but I want to look at this injury report first, Bryan. The Cowboys have a very short report.
They do.
But Trey Diggs, Tyler Booker, CeeDee Lamb, and Deron Bland are on it.
It's pretty significant injury report with the it might be a small injury report, but it's large in stature of the quality of player that's on it.
It's pinky. It's short and thick, Bryan Broaddus.
Yeah.
But if you look at the Green Bay, report, it's a lot of names on there.
Right.
But a lot of cats kind of walking through, a lot of cats limited, but in terms of the names, the Cowboys have the much more significant names on there.
And especially on the side of the ball that they don't need it to have.
100%.
You know, they're going to need their offensive guys, and that's where their injury report kind of lies right now.
I'm looking on the injury report, Bryan Broaddus. Deron Bland is limited. Yeah. Cool, you're going to need him. Trevon Diggs did not participate with a knee. Now, maybe it's that same knee that it was last week, but we'll talk about that next week, Bryan Broaddus. Yeah. We'll cross that bridge whenever we get there. And our guy Weezy Bridges got hurt. I feel like Weezy only played 10 snaps last week.
Sure.
Maybe he's a teams guy and got hurt there, but Weezy Bridges hurt. If that turns into anything, I'm sure Christy will tell you on Sunday what that means. But as far as the offensive side of the ball go, what we're talking about today, Bryan Broaddus, we're going to be missing Tyler Booker and CeeDee Lamb, and there's no hope for them to play on Sunday. So we're going to have to play without them. We're breaking down Packers defense today. This would have been a really good time to have CeeDee Lamb, Bryan Broaddus.
Yeah,
I feel like, you're getting your wheels going running the ball, and the Cowboys haven't always done that. But I do think in some matchups, it would have been great to have Dak kind of pick these guys apart with two great wide receivers.
Yeah, I think you got the right idea in the eye for this thing. You know, where the Packers, and you said this earlier when you opened the show, was the Packers want to put you in a certain situation. They want to find a way to attack you offensively and then build some type of a lead and then now sick their defense on you. And this is the thing that you really, really have to worry about if you're a Cowboy fan, Cowboy supporter, is because you're going to be limited at the guard spot and then you're also going to be limited at the wide receiver spot. Now you're in a situation where all of a sudden, you know, they're going to run stuff inside on you. This is going to be a team that, like, going back and watching them play the Cleveland Browns, Cleveland got a lot of twist front. They're going to you mentioned cover 2 looks. There's a lot of cover 3 looks. There's a lot of zone. This is about a 76% zone team, the way that they play. But they like to cloud their coverage. When we talk about clouding coverages, it's like drop the corner into depth and then put the safety down in flats and things like that. So they try and kind of confuse you that way. We've seen Dak Prescott in the past deal with some different coverages where guys were dropping to areas and then interceptions happening that way. The thing, Voch, that really would worry me going into this game is how much of that front is going to move. And I mean move in a way where all of a sudden you're sitting there looking at it and now it's T.J. Bass having to pass stunts, Steele having to pass stunts. Now you're passing the stunt to Brock Hoffman, you know, and they're experienced guys, but they want to do a lot to try and get Micah free, and they want to get Gary free on the rushes as well.
And I think a really good way to mitigate that, Bryan Broaddus, is to kind of run right at them.
Yeah.
You know, I think Detroit tried to run a little bit, but they got out of the way and started throwing the football. I think Washington kind of forced Jaden Daniels to kind of take that game over. I mean, they're kind of leaning on him. Cleveland got Joe Flacco.
Right.
And he didn't throw the ball very much like you would expect Joe Flacco to not really do very much. But Quinshon Judkins got 18 carries that game, I believe, Bryan Broaddus, for like 90-some-odd yards. So if you're able to run the ball against them, and they're not forcing you into that pass rush situation, if you keep the game close, and that's where this is different, because the Cowboys defense got to come to the party now.
Yeah, I know you've got a really good idea of what you need to do.
Sure.
The problem is you're coming into the game with, what the old saying is, you're going to a gunfight with a knife.
With a knife, Bryan Broaddus. Yeah. And I think the Browns were forced to run the football.
Yeah.
But it worked, though.
It did work.
It worked.
Because their defense held them in the game.
And that made me kind of look at these down linemen that they have, like, they look smaller.
Right.
When Cleveland was kind of pushing on them a little bit. And they got guys, Brian, Gary, Micah, Carlton Brooks, Van Ness, Sorrell Wyatt, even their bigger guys, their one-tech, three-tech guys, they're more athletic versions of what a three-tech, one-tech. I remember Carl Brooks in the draft, Bowling Green.
Yeah.
They had him standing up at edge, some Bryan Broaddus. He's like a 308, kind of guy.
Yeah.
Wyatt, when he was in Georgia, he was like a first step bursty kind of dude. So I think if you really bring physicality to the party, it'll help. But you don't know what your right guard situation is looking like because Booker's not here, and you can only get so physical. If you would have played Green Bay in week 2, when your interior offensive line, your wide receivers were healthy, I think we're having a different kind of different kind of conversation here. So now you're depending on Tolbert down the field.
Right.
And you're depending on whoever's going to play right guard and Brock Hoffman to get movement for you, and that's rough.
Yeah, it is rough. And, unfortunately, I think you're absolutely right. Depending on where you catch teams during the year. And, I've been watching the Cleveland game. And, I went through, again, the Detroit game. We all did. The Commander game, and then the Cleveland game. Micah Parsons was fighting a back injury. He really legitimately looked hurt and limited in that game. There were several times where I went back and broke down all the pressures that in that game. And it was interesting to watch Micah rush, and you could kind of see him grab the back and point to the sidelines and then jog off, So maybe there is something legitimate there. I think you're going to have to, drag Micah Parsons off this field this week against the Dallas Cowboys. But that back thing was flaring up on him during that football game. But you're right about this. There were times, too, where they ran the ball at Micah. We're all kind of familiar with that and how to run the ball at him and then make that part of your game plan. And he was pretty much there was one time where they ran it at him, and it was like a 10-yard gain. The ball was in, and then you could see because he jumped inside, and then he turned to the sidelines and kind of touched his chest like, my bad, my bad. So there are times where Micah Parsons is going to gamble, and there were times where they pinned him to the inside. There are not a lot of 10-yard runs against these guys. There's not a lot of chunk runs, but there are some runs when they do give it the chunk run, it's usually like an at somebody, they pin them, they pin the linebackers, and then they're able to get that alley.
I actually think this is a really good group of linebackers, though.
Yeah.
Bryan Broaddus.
No, I don't have a problem with these guys at all.
Walker and Cooper. Very athletic. They run, they get there, and they thump when they get there. Both of them also got some pass rush in them too, Bryan.
Yeah, they blitz these guys. They do.
Watching Cooper at Mississippi State, Walker at Georgia, you just have a file in your mind for these guys, right?
Yeah.
And now they're the better version of what they used to be. We liked all these guys, and you'll actually see Walker blitzing a little bit. You'll see Adrian Cooper on the edges, but to your point, what the Browns did really well was they got guards on the linebackers in the run game.
They did.
So when they got them there, they was able to move them around a little bit. And that's where some of your bigger runs came from.
Right.
If Quinshon Judkins can do it and thump on the back end of those runs, Javonte Williams can too, Brian.
Yeah, he absolutely can. And, I think this is where Dallas is going to have to. The problem, and Voch, you know this, and I think our fans know this too, is that will Dallas's defense make stops? And listen, they're not, and that's the problem. Yeah. You could talk about running the football, and you could talk about, being successful at it, and you could actually do it. And then you get into this game, and then all of a sudden you're trying to run the ball, and you're having some success, but you're not scoring. All of a sudden, okay, you're not finishing drives, you're not getting touchdowns, you're kicking field goals, and you're like, okay, cool. But Dallas has been giving up so many big plays on defense, and if you just get one or two stops, 1 or 2 more stops a half.
Sure.
And that's how the Bears beat you last week. You know, you were kind of moving the football on the Bears a little bit, but then they got a stop. Yeah. Then they scored. Then they get another stop and they score. Those are the things I worry about. I worry about the Packers putting so much pressure on you to have to score along with them that you can't run the football like you might want to.
Bryan, I think when the Cowboys passing game gets in trouble, I think it's when they man up on you and you can't get free.
Right.
You know, if you look at the playoff game in Green Bay a couple of years ago, it was they was running man against us, you know, and CeeDee just couldn't get free. Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert just couldn't get free. They run a ton of zone now, Bryan. Cover two.
Yeah.
And they don't give up too many big plays. So I got this is a two-parter here, Bryan. One, assuming what your offensive line versus their pass rush relationship looks like.
Sure.
Is this a game where you want to lead with Dak throwing the ball and leading us to victory in that way, or answer that question first, Bryan? Would this be a, like, you know, with them playing so much zone and you're able to get them in short yardage situations, right? Cowboys do that, you know, dime you up till I get downfield type of thing, right? Is that a path of victory for you, Bryan? Like Dak taking this thing over?
Yeah, I mean, I love when Dak has that ability. But the thing that I always worry about with Dak is sometimes the more the throws, the more the chances for potential mistakes. And I think Dak has gotten better with the turnovers. You know, you do worry about the occasional, like I said, here's a team that will play some cloud coverage on you, and all of a sudden, if Dak reads it the wrong way, is he throwing the ball in the flat to a safety that's going down, you know, and then he's thinking the safety is still at depth. You know, those are the things you kind of worry about on the outside. And you know, personally, I would love to get into this game and have Dallas be able to run the football,
for sure,
and have success doing that. But the biggest problem that you're facing is, are you going to get stops? Are you going to allow, because, you know, it's all of a sudden, say you take the ball for 6-7 minutes and kick a field goal, then Green Bay gets the ball back and it's 3 plays, 75 yards and a touchdown. You know, now it's 7-3. Okay, now you're going to try and run. You keep running the ball, and you kick another field goal. And now it's 7-6, and Green Bay comes. Then it's 14-6. And now you're not running the football anymore.
Right.
That's the problem that I have. I personally feel like that Dallas almost needs to make every game they play in a shootout. You could say about control the game, do this and do that. If the defense would kind of figure out how to get stops, I'd run the ball more. But I think your best path to victory is trying to protect your front and then throw the football.
The second part of that question, Bryan, the Cowboys don't really the Packers don't really give up a bunch of deep passes, right? Completions. The 10 to 19 yards, which is intermediate. They gave up 10 plays. And they only gave up 1 deep ball that's more than 20 yards. And most of the time, Bryan, out of those 11 plays, I say about 6 of them, it was around Quay Walker somehow.
Sure.
It was around Quay Walker. They was messing around with the safety, Xavier McKinney, messing around with him, something like that. It wasn't just deep 9 route to the outside, because they're playing cover 2 and they're trying to take that away.
Right.
So when deep plays do happen, it's behind the linebackers, or it's in between. Like once you clear a linebacker, it's in between that gap, to the next one. Is this a big Jake Ferguson Turpin game?
Yeah, I'd like to believe that you could find a way to attack with the vertical routes with the tight ends. You mentioned the cover 2 stuff, the 3 deep stuff that they also have. That's something that we're going to see probably quite a bit in this game. How much respect do you feel like, though? That's the question now you have to ask yourself. With no CeeDee Lamb in the game, how much respect do you give to George Pickens? Because what can happen is all of a sudden you're in a situation where maybe, the Packers and Jeff Hafley, their coordinator, look at it as the guy that Dak Prescott is going to throw the ball to is going to be Jake Ferguson. And so now it's almost like what Bill Belichick did. When they used to play against Jason Witten those couple of times, he never worried about a Des Bryant or anybody else. He worried about Jason Witten and maybe that Jeff Hafley will treat Ferguson the same way. The last 3 weeks, we've seen the ball go to him quite a bit, and maybe he'll start to say, well, Dallas is their best receiver might be George Pickens, but the one they throw the ball to the most is Jake Ferguson. So how they take Jake Ferguson out of this game or how they handle him, I think will dictate. As you're watching this game very, very early, you'll see how they play Ferguson, and that'll tell you what their game plan is going to be forward. If I'm the Packers, I surely try and take it, even though I know that their best weapon is Pickens, and then their next best weapon probably is Turpin, but the guy they throw the ball to the most is Ferguson. I think I would play it that way.
On the depth chart, Brian, just looking at it, their corners, Keyshawn Nixon. They say Nate Hobbs, but watching the film, I saw more of Valentine, number 24.
24, yeah.
24.
Yeah.
And then they got Bullard, he's a walk-down safety nickel kind of dude, Bryan Broaddus. How do we attack those guys? Because when I'm looking at those names, I'm not seeing names that I'm fearful of. But they play great team defense, and pass rush helps them as well, Brian.
See, I think that's the thing that, to me, this game, if Dallas turns into having to throw the football, you're right about these corners. They're not the name corners that we've seen in the past. But what they are, they're corners that really benefit from a team that over 50% of the time is getting pressure on dropbacks. That's where I think that they're you mentioned the intermediate routes, the in-breaking routes. Joe Flacco was able to make a couple of throws to the inside there. Jaden Daniels made some throws to the outside that were pretty good throws. The Lions didn't really get a whole heck of a lot going with their offense, but if you're going to attack these corners, man, it just starts up front. It starts with, can you handle Parsons? Can you handle Gary? Can you handle a blitz? They're really, really, really big on rush and four, and for reasons. They've got legitimate pass rushers. They could throw Gary, Van Ness. They could throw all these guys out there and just and rush the passer with Micah that way. Put three guys out there, and here we go. So this is if Dallas is going to have any type of success throwing the football against these corners, they're capable of it, but it's going to have to start with what happens up front.
How do you think they're going to roll these guys out, Brian? Because if it's me, I know Van Ness is a power guy. I'm putting him right over there on Terrence Steele. And, Gary, he lines up in B gap sometime. I seen him.
Right.
Broaddus, put him over there with the Guyton, but they're going to move everybody around.
They're going to move them around,
Everybody's going to get a piece of everybody. The Cowboys, when they had Parsons, there were many games where Parsons was just in one spot the whole time.
Right.
Green Bay are promises kept with them. They're moving Parsons everywhere.
Yeah,
they're gonna move him everywhere, Brian. So Hoffman might see him. Whoever's gonna play right guard this week might see him. Left tackle, right tackle, everybody's going to have to run into it. This is really going to be Dak catching and throwing, Brian.
Yeah, it is. And it's going to be how quickly can Brock Hoffman identify, and then how quickly. This is maybe an advantage you do have, a home game. Now, there could be 30-40% of that crowd could be Green Bay fans, and you could start to hear the crowd noise, and if that'll get into it. So we've seen teams play home games and have to use silent counts because of the visiting crowd noise. This could very well be one of those games but the communication up front is going to have to be key, because Hoffman's going to have to get it to Bass, and then Bass is going to have to get it to the outside, and they're going to have to pass these things. And also, if they're keeping tight ends in to block, that communication has to be Hunter Lipke. I'd like to see something, Voch, in this game that in a way to maybe handle Micah Parsons is, and it doesn't really pertain to you could use it as helping him in the passing game or helping defend him in the passing game. But every time there's a running play, and especially if the plays run away from him, I'm bringing a blocker back and hitting him.
Just keep chipping him.
I'm going to say you're in a situation where it's a under center design run where it's going to the outside and it's going away from Parsons. That ball's coming back, say to our right, and Parsons on our left, and he's gonna chase. I'm having span forward block back. I'm having a motion with Hunter Lipke, put him in position, block him. Yeah. I'm doing every time there is some type of run, whether when it's away from him, I'm going into, and this is going to sound terrible, but I'm not meaning to have injury here. I'm going to his legs. I'm making Micah Parsons fight blocks all day with his hands, making him. If you come to the outside, you could cut these edges inside the tackle box. But every time the ball is going away, I'm sending a blocker back at Micah Parsons, not to let him chase the ball.
Get him thinking, slow him down, piss him off.
Slow him down, and just find ways to, even if you bump him, and it's not, maybe it's motion, and then you're running the play side. It's motion's coming back, hit him every time, hit him, and just keep working that angle as you're. Don't let Micah Parsons feel comfortable running stuff down. Don't let him feel. You can run it at him. You could try and widen him. You can try and get him to go inside, and then you can handle him that way. But plays where he is the backside player, I would hit him every single time. Yeah. Somehow, some way to try and slow him up in this game. Gary's a really good rusher, too. Yeah. They've got two really good edge rushers here. But how you handle Parsons in this game, I think, will dictate how you can maybe control this Green Bay defense a little bit. We're going to the sunglasses here.
Man, Brian, I'm just trying to figure this out, man. I just want to ask you, Brian, I'm just curious what you think. No pressure, nothing at all. Based on the first 3 games that we've watched from George Pickens.
Yeah.
Has he kind of lived up to what you thought he was going to be? Do you think do you think with CeeDee Lamb being out that he's going to fill right in as wide receiver 1 guy?
See, this is where I'm a George Pickens, George Pickens stand
fanboy, yeah.
I'm a fanboy. I am a fanboy of George Pickens because I've seen George Pickens make tremendous plays. But I saw last week when things were going a little south, George Pickens' routes weren't great. And maybe he was getting a little frustrated. Maybe he was getting a little down the way the game was going. Maybe he was realizing that, it was going to turn into a game where he was going to have to run routes every single snap. It was going to be a 40-yard dash for the next quarter and a half because of the way the game was going. I was expecting a lot more from George Pickens. I really liked what I saw in the Giants game because I felt like, okay, they found something here. They got him going. They got him motivated. I'm interested this week, Voch, to see the situation with George and the fact that they know that CeeDee is not going to play in this game. I think George Pickens will be motivated in this game to have a really, really good – and it's a nationally televised game.
Yeah.
Like the whole country will be watching George Pickens play.
Yeah.
And I do want to believe that George Pickens will shine in this game. But to your point, has George Pickens lived up to everything that I thought he was going to be? The jury is still out on that.
Yeah, we'll see, Bryan Broaddus, because I've been watching some of that film, man. Just looking.
Oh no,
I thought they was going to be running mates, man. I thought
I understand.
was going to have his 13 catches. I thought Pick was at least going to be a 5, 6, 7 catch a game.
I agree.
Guy. You know
I agree.
But, Pick, all those passes that went to Ferguson last week. I would have loved to see. I would have loved for some of them to have gone to Pickens. So we'll see, Brian. This is his opportunity to make his money and move together to get the leverage for the contract and all this kind of stuff. Like maybe there's a lot more weight on this game. So Pickens will step up. And, you know what I mean?
Like I said, the fact that he knows that he is the primary receiver in this one, CeeDee being out and likely out for a couple of weeks, nationally televised game. These guys like to shine on these moments. It's a big stage for him. And you're right, Mulugeta situation, right now you would say that he is not a $25 to $30 million wide receiver. And I think that he needs to find a way to kind of get that back into going in that mode.
Now, Brian, when I put my glasses on, that's when hard questions come, man.
Sure.
You lucky I didn't have the Phil Collins with me.
I miss Phil Collins. We got to get him back.
We'll get him back, Bryan Broaddus. But you pretty much, like, that sums up the Packers defense. That's
you know what I feel like. To me, this game is really it's how well Dallas's defense plays.
Yeah.
Because and overall, Dallas's defense, if they play at a level where they're not giving up points every single drive, they've got a chance. But it's also going to come down to, can these guys that are backup players, can the Hoffmans, can the TJ Bass or whoever plays right guard in this game? We kind of feel like it's going to be TJ Bass. But can they do their job against a front that's very, very good? And Green Bay is going to try and get you into a game where your strength is running the football. They're going to try and get you into a game where you have to throw the ball and protect. And they feel like if they do that, then they have the best chance to win these games. They're, like I said, 50% of the time, they're getting pressure on you. They're a difficult defense to have to. Now, you block their front, their cornerbacks, you can make some plays. You can make some plays down the field. But the pass rush affects and helps how those guys play defense. So if Dallas gets into a game where it turns into a shootout type of a game, then it's going to be down who can rush the passer better. We know Green Bay can rush the passer better than Dallas right now. Yeah.
Brian, we're going to figure it all out. Sunday is approaching.
Yep.
And we're going to have to just cross our fingers and hope that the Cowboys defense can
they have to.
They can buy us a little bit of time.
Yeah, they have to. And really they don't. If it turns into that just every possession, if it turns into that playoff game that they had, a couple years ago, well, you're going to have very similar results.
Now, tomorrow's Friday.
Right.
That's when me and Bryan Broaddus come to the table and we answer questions. So
yeah.
I'm going to put out a post on my YouTube situation and y'all can go look at it and put your question there. We're also going to we're going to take questions from this comment section. So if you have any questions, y'all can put them down up in here. Brian, you got a lovely hoodie on, your lovely LSU,
my LSU hoodie on, yeah.
But man, I'm going to Photoshop a Crown Global Media on there and a Doing All Right on your shoulder or something like that. I'm going to figure it all out. But this Crown Global Media merch is on the way, Brian. So,
it is.
We're going to make this big, grand announcement while we're wearing our Crown Global Media garments. That's coming soon, y'all. Please hang tight for that. Follow Crown Global on socials. He's BRY getting Broaddus. I'm VOCHLONBARDI. We'll catch y'all next time. All right? Crown.